Dr. Temple Grandin, author and professor of animal science at Colorado State University. Dr. Grandin, I'd like to talk about the way horses, which are very similar to cattle in this respect, think. Can you give me a little bit of insight on that?
Well, in a prey animal, fear is the dominant emotion. Fear motivates an animal to get away from predators. And an animal like a horse has higher fear than animals like dogs. But there's a tremendous variation. Like you have an Arab that can be very smart, very sensitive, easily scared, and you can have other horses that are a lot lower fear. And this gets into, training methods. The curt pate, completely low stress, that's what you need to be doing with the Arab. But you have some other fat, kind of more plug kind of a horse, you may need to be a bit firmer with him.
So one size does not fit all as far as horse training is concerned?
No, but I want to make an emphasis. Really rough methods of training, I am absolutely, totally against.
Now, would that be from kind of an ethical or moral standpoint, or because it's just so counterproductive to horses learning?
Well,
or both?
I went down to Chile where they do totally rough training and giant big spurs, and they beat the horses into submission. And if you did that to the more high-strung horses, you wouldn't be able to ride them. But these horses hate people. You go up and you touch them, and the ears back, teeth are out. They wouldn't dare bite. It's been the spirit's broken. And I think, from an ethical standpoint, I think it's just totally wrong. Yeah, they're rideable, but they're just, I think that's just awful.
Well, I would think, too, that with that kind of a horse, he'd be looking for the first possible opportunity to get out of Dodge.
Well, and then
he might not be there for you when you really needed him.
Of course, well, that's right. And of course, genetically, they've ended up, selecting horses that are, as far as horses go, are really low fear. Because if you take the high-strung horse and you abuse it like that, it's going to be traumatized and ruined, and you won't be able to ride it.
Now, horses and cattle think differently than we humans do, correct?
Well, horses and cattle are more attuned to fleeing. Human beings are, oftentimes will fight rather than flee. And you look at on the African plains, the big heavy animal, like the Cape buffalo, he's going to turn and fight. With the little fine-boned antelopes, they just flee.
The thing that I'd like to explore is what's actually going through a horse's mind. They tend to think in terms of pictures and categories, correct?
Well, yes, because a horse is going to associate a visual image or a certain sound or a certain feeling with the bad experience. Like if a horse has been abused with a snaffle bit, he's going to panic when he feels that snaffle bit. But if you put a straight bit in, that's a different feeling picture, because these feeling things are specific, he may be fine. Or he might associate a white saddle pad with no saddle on top with being sacked out in a really rough way. But if you put a saddle on top of the pad, it's fine, because that's a different picture than just the naked white pad.
And another example that you've used repeatedly, which I find so instructive, is the black hat example, a horse that became traumatized to the sight of a black hat. And it wasn't necessarily the correct causal relationship, but it was what was real to that horse.
Well, yeah, because the bit at least would have caused the pain, where what happened with the black hat, he was abused during a veterinary procedure, and he was looking at the black hat. Black hats had nothing to do with it, but the bad guy was wearing a black hat. There was another horse that was beaten up during a semen collection, and he reared up, went over backwards, and was looking at an overhead garage door. Now, the garage doors had nothing to do with being beaten up, but when he went up over backwards, that's what he saw, and he associated that with the bad treatment. So now you have a horse that's afraid of overhead garage doors.
And the thing I'd like to emphasize is this plays right into the concept that the horse is never wrong. That's just the way that horse's brain is wired, correct?
Well, it's associative thinking, and sometimes they make a wrong association. A person has more association cortex and is going to know, yeah, a garage door didn't cause it. But that's sort of a second-order association. The horse is just going to associate it with the thing that he's feeling or seeing or hearing at the time he got abused.
Okay, so you've got a situation where he's made a causal connection between something, whether it's right or wrong. Let's say the black hat example. How would you go about fixing that?
Well, first of all, you got to figure out what he's afraid of. It might take a while to figure out that black hats are the thing the horse is afraid of. You find out he's fine at home and he's going crazy at the show. You have to figure out that your horse made the association with garage doors. If you can figure that out, sometimes that's hard to figure out. But they tend to make an association with something they were looking at or hearing or feeling right at the time the scary thing happened. Sometimes the association is appropriate, sometimes it's not. Now, the problem we've got with things like the black hat horse is that fear memory can never be erased. The brain won't let you erase it. What you have to do is, when you work on desensitizing it, is train them to close the file, but it's still there in its memory. It's still there like on the computer hard drive, and it can pop back.
You're kind of pushing it deeper into the deeper recesses of the mind?
Well, you basically kind of close it. I like to think of it as a computer file being closed.
Well, that's a great analogy, because we can all relate to that.
But it's still there.
Yeah.
The file is still there. It's not deleted. There is no delete. So when you use operant conditioning or whatever, or desensitization, you can close the file, but it's still there. And in the high-strung nervous horse, that file's more likely to pop back.
Now, do you start layering on positive experiences and positive associations?
Well, you can do that, and in some horses you can't totally get rid of it. You know, maybe now he's bucking every time he sees the black hat really close by. You know, you might get it down to 1 in 25 rides, but you can almost fix it. You get a really high-strung horse, they can get really traumatized. It's almost like a post-traumatic stress syndrome and a flashback.
Well, one thing, Dr. Grandin, that you've said before that I think is so important is you kind of have to pick your battles. There's not every problem that you have with a horse is really worth the effort or time to try and fix.
Well, that's right. You know, let's say the horse is afraid of snaffle bit. I can just not use a snaffle bit. I can just get rid of that. Now, with the black hat horse, I'm going to have problems with showing him, because I can't get rid of all the black hats. Maybe I might want to try to fix that. Naked white saddle blankets, if he's afraid of that, well, I just don't own any white saddle blankets. Yeah. I could get that out of his life. You know, but then you can have behavior things that are just kind of silly, like the horse wants to ride on the left side of the trailer. Well, go ahead and let it ride on the left side of the trailer. Yeah. That's not worth fighting. That's not worth having a big blow up over.
Well, Dr. Grandin, is there anything that you would like to leave our viewers, one kind of overriding principle, say, about how horses think?
Get away from language. They are sensory-based thinkers. They think in pictures, they think in feeling, they think in smell, they think in sound. Also, do not mix up fear and aggression. And most of the bad behavior a horse does during riding or training is going to be fear-based. Now, if you have a couple of horses on a pasture fighting, yeah, that's going to be true aggression. But if you're punishing fear, it tends to make it worse.
Thank you so much for being with us today on The Horse Show.
Well, thank you for having me.